The early morning light streamed through the tall glass windows of JFK International Airport, illuminating the bustling terminal. Travelers hurried through the concourse, pulling their suitcases, grabbing quick coffees, and glancing at their boarding passes. Among the crowd, a tall, reserved young man moved discreetly, his posture calm yet deliberate. It was Barron Trump, the youngest son of former President Donald Trump. Dressed in a simple black hoodie, jeans, and sneakers, he blended seamlessly with the crowd, far removed from the extravagance often associated with his family name. Barron had always been known for his quiet demeanor, shunning the spotlight that followed his family. This morning, he was en route to Los Angeles on a personal mission to attend a charity event for underprivileged children. The trip was unannounced, and he had insisted on traveling alone, opting for a rare opportunity to experience a sense of normalcy. He booked his first-class ticket under an alias, determined to avoid unnecessary attention. The first-class lounge was a picture of elegance, with plush seating, soft jazz playing in the background, and an array of gourmet breakfast options. Barron settled into a corner seat, pulling out a book from his backpack. He was engrossed in *Sapiens* by Yuval Noah Harari, a favorite of his, when a murmur of recognition rippled through the lounge. A few passengers whispered to each other, their gazes darting toward him. Although his casual attire and low profile initially concealed his identity, his striking height and distinctive features soon betrayed him. "Is that Barron Trump?" a woman in her late 30s whispered to her companion. "I thought he'd be traveling with an entourage." "He's just sitting there, reading a book," her friend replied, equally surprised. "You'd think someone from that family would make more of a scene." Barron, sensing the glances, remained composed, turning another page. He had grown used to being recognized in unexpected places, but he had also learned to ignore the curiosity of strangers. As the boarding announcement for Flight 237 to Los Angeles echoed through the lounge, "Young man," he said, leaning slightly into the aisle, "what do you do? You look a bit out of place here." Barron looked up from his book, his expression calm but firm. "I'm a student," he replied simply. The businessman chuckled, his laughter dripping with condescension. "Student? Must be nice to have daddy's credit card." Several passengers shifted uncomfortably in their seats, sensing the tension. The woman with the designer scarf raised an eyebrow, clearly entertained by the exchange. Barron, however, refused to rise to the bait. "I paid for this ticket myself," he said evenly, returning to his book. The businessman scoffed, shaking his head. "Sure you did," he muttered under his breath, loud enough for Barron to hear. The rest of the flight continued without incident, but the businessman's dismissive attitude lingered in the air. Barron remained composed, choosing not to let the man's arrogance affect him. When the plane finally began its descent into Los Angeles, the cabin buzzed with activity as passengers prepared for landing. As the passengers disembarked and entered the terminal, the businessman strutted confidently through the airport, oblivious to the whispers and glances that followed him. Barron, on the other hand, walked quietly, his demeanor unassuming. It wasn't until they reached baggage claim that the true twist of the story unfolded. A group of reporters and photographers had gathered near the exit, their cameras poised. The businessman, assuming they were there for him, adjusted his tie and prepared to bask in the spotlight. Instead, the cameras turned to Barron, who had been trying to slip out unnoticed. The flashes went off, and the reporters called out his name, their voices filling the terminal. "Barron! Over here. What brings you to L.A.? Barron, can we get a comment about the charity event?" The businessman froze, his expression a mix of shock and embarrassment. He turned to look at Barron, who now stood surrounded by reporters, his calm demeanor unchanged. One of the flight attendants from earlier walked by and paused beside the businessman, a knowing smile on her face. "Looks like you were sitting next to someone important after all," she said before continuing on her way. The businessman's face turned red as the realization sank in. He had spent the entire flight mocking and belittling someone who was not only the son of a former president but also on a mission to make a difference in the world. The irony was not lost on him, and he quickly made his way out of the terminal, avoiding the cameras. Barron, meanwhile, answered a few questions from the reporters before politely excusing himself. He had no interest in the limelight and was eager to get to the charity event. As he stepped into a waiting car, he couldn't help but reflect on the flight and the assumptions people often made based on appearances. For Barron, the experience was a reminder of the importance of humility and kindness. And for those who had underestimated him, it was a lesson they wouldn't soon forget.